Of course, on the day I choose to film, it's windy. To my knowledge, I don't think I can do anything about that. So either the video audio is going to be terrible or editing will be hell. Hopefully you can see the cows in the background. I think they're cuties. Florencio Roque Fernandez was an Argentine serial criminal who took the life of approximately 15 women in his hometown of Monteros in the 1950s. He was often known as the Argentine vampire and the window vampire. However, several Argentine sources deny his existence as an urban legend. If you are from Argentina, please let me know your opinion on this. I am admittedly ignorant. Fernandez was mentally ill and suffered from illusions and hallucinations that made him firmly believe he was a vampire. In addition to being aroused by red bodily fluid from a young age, he started living on the street because his family abandoned him. At the time of his arrest, he lived in a cave near the community and suffered from extreme sensitivity to light. He followed his chosen victim for several days. He made sure she was alone at home and took advantage of hot summer nights when the victim left her window open and entered their house through them. While the victim was sleeping, Fernandez attacked her, then bit her neck, sometimes cutting out her trachea. This mirrored the rumor that he drank the fluids of his victim. He would leave the victim to pass away in her bed if she was still alive at the end of the attack. Fernandez was arrested on February 14th, 1960 at the age of 25. The press described the police investigation as picturesque since it took place in the cave where he lived. Fernandez did not resist arrest until the police let him out of the cave and into the sunlight. He was declared insane and confined in a psychiatric institution where he passed of natural causes a few years later. Ahmed Siraji was a well-respected 48-year-old cattle breeder and witch doctor in Medan, the capital of North Sumatra. He trusted the man for guidance on matters such as love, wealth, and health. However, when the police arrested the doctor for taking the lives of several local women, people began to wonder about the self-proclaimed sorcerer's true powers. Ahmed claimed to have buried the young woman in the sand near his sugarcane plantations, with her head remaining above the sand. He choked the woman with an electrical cord and drank the saliva that dribbled out of their mouths. The ritual is said to increase his power so he can help clients and heal all kinds of problems, from poverty to illness to love. After the sacrificial ceremony was over, Ahmed dug the woman out of the sand and buried them closer to his house. All the victims were buried in a specific pattern facing his house. Ahmed could have gotten away with his crimes for many more years if not for the vigilance of a father whose suspicions led to him. His arrest was on May 2nd, 1997. His 3 wives, who are sisters, were also arrested. When the father of one of the victims reported the disappearance of her daughter who had gone to see Ahmed, the police looked into him. They found the body of one of the victims in a field near his house and began thorough investigation of the plantation and found 41 more victims. Ahmed confessed to taking the lives of 16 women, hoping that after 16 women were found, the police would stop looking for more victims. However, evidence of at least 25 women, including clothing, jewelry, and watches, was found on his property. With the increased evidence against him, Ahmed changed his story. He told the police that in 11 years he had taken the lives of 42 women between the age of 11 and 30. Many of the victims were prostitutes, which is why their disappearance was not immediately noticed. But after 42 bodies were exhumed, 80 families reported missing women, raising fears that there could be many more victims. Most of the women who hired the doctor asked him to cast magic spells to ensure the faithfulness of their husbands. Neighbors said many women sought help from the sorcerer, believing they would become richer, healthier, and attractive to men. Ahmed's method was to charge each victim according to their needs, usually around $300. Then he took them to a sugarcane plantation near his home and buried them waist deep in the ground. He told the woman this was part of the ritual. When in the ground, he choked every woman with an electrical cord. He drank their saliva, undressed them, and buried them again, with their heads facing his home to enhance his magical powers. Ahmed said he had a dream in which his father's spirit told him to drink the saliva of 70 women so he could become a mystical healer. He said his father did not specifically advise him to take the woman's lives. He took his own initiative to take their lives. During his wife's trials, they denied their husband took anyone's lives. They claimed that they confessed as a result of police harming them. However, their pleas of forced confession made no difference, and on April 27th, 1989, a three-judge panel found the witch doctor guilty of Indonesia's worst crime spree. Ahmed was sentenced to no longer live by firing squad. Those in court cheered as the verdict was read out. He was executed on July 10th, 2008. On the morning of December 10th, 1968, 4 employees of a bank were transporting near 30 million yen, which is over 800,000 US dollars at 1968 exchange rates, in the trunk of a Nissan company car. Metal boxes contained bonuses for the employees of a factory. A young man on a motorcycle wearing a police uniform blocked the car's path on the street next to a Tokyo prison, which was only about 200 meters away from the destination. The bank employees were told by the fake police that their manager's house had been destroyed in an explosion, and the car was reported to have explosives planted in it. When the 4 employees got out of the vehicle, the officer crawled under the car. Moments later, he rolled out and screamed that the car was about to explode, smoke and flames coming from below. When the employees got further away from the vehicle, the police officer got into the car and drove away. The bank employees believed that the thief was an actual police officer and accepted his story about the bomb because the bank manager had been sent threatening letters in advance. The smoke and flames were caused by a flare he had lit under the car. At some point, the thief abandoned the bank's car and carried the metal boxes into another previously stolen car. This car was also abandoned, and the boxes were moved again to another previously stolen vehicle. 120 pieces of evidence were left at the crime scene, including a white painted police motorcycle. However, the evidence was mainly ordinary, everyday items that were scattered on purpose to confuse the police investigation. A 19-year-old man, the son of a police officer, was suspected immediately after the robbery. He passed 5 days later of potassium cyanide poisoning. He had no alibi. However, the money was not found after he passed. According to official records, he caused his own passing and is considered innocent. A massive police investigation was launched, posting 780,000 composite sketches across Japan. There were 110,000 names on the suspect list and 1,700 police officers involved in the investigation, the largest in Japanese history. At this point, this involved examining fingerprints collected at the scene and comparing them to those on file. 6 million fingerprints on file were compared individually, but no matches were found. 2 days later, a 26-year-old man was suspected. He was arrested on an unrelated charge charged, but had an alibi. The robbery happened on the day he was taking an exam, since the arrest was based on a false allegation. The arresting police officer, Muto, was accused of using his power unjustly. The friend of the 19-year-old suspect was arrested 7 years later, just before the statute of limitations. He had a large amount of money and was suspected of the robbery. He was 18 years old at the time of the robbery. The police asked him to explain the large amount of money, but he said nothing, and they could not prove his money came from the robbery. After 7 years of investigation, the police announced in December 1975 that the statute of limitations had expired. Since 1988, the thief had also been exempted from any civil liability, allowing him to tell his story without fear of legal consequences. At dawn in mid-November 1915, a Yashuri brown bear appeared at the Ika family house in Snakabetchu, Rokinsawa, about 11 kilometers inland from the west coast of Hokkaido. The surprise encounter prompted the family to burst into panic, but the bear fled after taking only harvest corn. In these days, the town was newly settled, so encountering wild animals was not uncommon. A few days later, the bear reappeared, worrying about the safety of the horse. The head of the Ikeda family called on his second son. 10 days later, the bear reappeared. They took a shot at it, but failed to take its life. The next morning, they followed the bear's footprints, which led to Mount Anishika. Along the trail, the hunting party discovered red fluid, but a snowstorm forced them to turn back. They believed that the bear, having been injured, would now fear humans and no longer raid settlements. Though the next month, at 10:30 in the morning, the giant brown bear turned up at the home of the Ota family. A woman and her baby were at the house. The baby was bitten on the head, which took its life. The woman fought back, apparently by throwing firewood, and tried to escape. She was overtaken, knocked down, and dragged into the forest. According to contemporary descriptions, the scene resembled a slaughterhouse with red fluid puddled on the farmhouse floor. Early in the morning, 2 men of the household left the village to run errands. Meanwhile, a search party of 30 men was organized to capture the brown bear and recover the remains. The group entered the forest and had advanced no more than 150 meters when they met the bear. 5 men fired at the bear, but only one managed to hit it. The now angry animal nevertheless retreated, and the men escaped injury. After the bear had fled, hunters encountered the area and discovered dried red bodily fluid on the snow at the base of a tree beneath the snow. They found the body of the victim with only the head and parts of her legs remaining. The bear had stashed the body in the snow in an attempt to preserve it as well as hide it from scavengers. It was thus proven that this particular bear had attacked the Ota family. The villagers believed that once the bear had a taste for human flesh, its return to the settlement was assured. Villagers gathered at the Ota family house with weapons Around 8 p.m. that night, the bear reappeared. Although the villagers had anticipated the bear's return, they were nonetheless panicked by it. One man did manage to fire at the bear. By the time 50 guardmen posted 300 meters away at the neighboring Mayuke house arrived, the bear had vanished into the woods. The men reassembled and headed downstream on what was thought to be the bear's trail. When the news of the Ota family attack was first received by the Mayuka family, women and children sought refuge there while guardsmen patrolled outside. The guardsmen were having dinner when the news of the bear's return to the Ota farm reached them, and they marched off. The bear, having escaped with its life at the Ota house, fled to the Mayuki home. The wife was preparing a late meal while carrying her fourth son. She heard a commotion outside, but before she could investigate, the bear broke through the window and entered the house. The cooking pot on the hearth fell and extinguished the flames. And in a panic, the oil lamp also went out, plunging the house into darkness. She tried to run out of the house, but her other son clung to her legs and tripped her as she ran. The bear attacked her. One guard remained at the house, who ran to the door. The bear released the woman to chase him. She then fled with the children. The guard tried to hide behind furniture, but was clawed out. The bear then mauled the third son of the Mayuke family and the guard. The next target was a pregnant woman. She, too, was attacked and eaten. In later testimonies, the villagers heard the woman asking the bear not to touch her pregnant belly, but eat her instead. The fetus was later found alive in her body, but passed soon after. The guard following the bear downstream realized that they were not actually on its trail. As they rushed back to the Mayuke family house, the seriously injured woman was waiting for them with the news of the attack on her family. The group ran there to help the survivors. When they arrived, the house was dark, but sounds of an attack could be heard. Believing the bear had taken the lives of everyone inside, some of the guards suggested setting the house on fire. The woman, hoping some of her children were still alive, denied. The guards were divided into two groups. One group of 10 men guarded the door, while the other went to the back of the house. After receiving the signal, the group at the back started making a racket, shouting and firing their weapons. As expected, the bear appeared at the front door. The men there were bunched up, their line of fire blocked by a guard in front of them, whose own rifle had missed fire. Amidst the general confusion and danger of crossfire, the bear fled into the night. They entered the house carrying torches. Seeing the results of the attack, 2 of the children were injured but lived. The woman recovered from all of her injuries, but the child who was bit while being carried on his mother's back passed 3 years later. The village people gathered in the school, and the seriously injured were cared for. The mother made a full recovery. After the incident, only some Japanese war veterans remained at their posts. The father of the Mayuko family heard of a man who was a professional bear hunter, so he visited his house. The hunter was sure that the bear was Kazake, who had previously been accused of mauling 3 women, but he had pawned his weapon for money to buy alcohol and refused the request to help. The next day, the men returned home. They were unaware of what had happened to their family. They pieced together the story of the attack a group of men, including the two who had just returned, was formed to hunt the bear. Believing that the bear would reappear, they decided to wait for the bear at the Miyuku residence, but the night passed without an attack. News of the bear spread, and men from nearby towns joined. It was decided that the bear would probably return to retrieve the bodies of the slain, but there were no remains in the Miyuku family house. Therefore, a new plan was proposed. Try to lure the bear out with a victim's body. The plan was widely condemned, especially by the Ota and Miyuku family, but it was decided that it was the best plan for the future of the village. The strategy was implemented in one day. A 6-person sniper team waited inside the house, but the bear stopped, seemed to check the inside of the house, and then returned to the forest. That night the bear did not appear again, so the plan ended in failure. At dawn, the search team discovered that the Ota family's house had been ransacked. The bear ate their winter food stores and ransacked their home. The bear damaged at least 8 houses. Considering that there were now 60 armed men, it was decided that they should hunt in the surrounding mountains. Now it seemed that the bear did not care and extended his territory downstream. That night, a sniper thought he saw something behind the tree on the opposite side of the river. Their captain thought it might be a man's shadow, though when he spoke to it, he received no response and ordered the snipers to open fire. At that moment, the shadow, probably the bear, disappeared into the forest. They were disappointed that they didn't manage to take down the bear. The next morning, the group explored the opposite side of the river and found a bear footprint and red fluid. With the bear wounded again and the impending blizzards threatening to cover the tracks, it was decided that this was the most critical opportunity to hunt the bear. They decided to chase the bear with a team of 2 because it would be faster than a larger team. They knew the bear's behavior and managed to track him down. He was spotted resting near a Japanese oak tree. The bear was approached from a distance of 20 meters and had a weapon fired at it. The bear was hit in the heart and in the head, leaving it fatally wounded. The bear was measured at 749 pounds and 2.7 meters long. An autopsy was performed on the bear, in which parts of its victims were found in its stomach, although the bear's skull and some fur were saved at the time. They were later lost. After the attack, most of the villagers in Rokan-sawa soon left, and it quickly became a ghost town. Akawa Hiroshi, who was 7 years old at the time of the incident, and the son of the mayor of Satenbetsu village, grew up to be a prolific bear hunter. He promised to take the life of 10 bears for every victim of an attack. By the time he was 62, he hunted 102 bears. He then retired and built a shrine where the people can pray for the victims. On August 17th, 1997, Howard Stern hosted his radio show as usual until a serial criminal, Clay, called.
All right, I got a guy on the phone who claims he's been and he's wondering why he's doing it. Ed?
No, this isn't Ed.
Oh. You haven't?
No, I never said my name was Ed. You can call me Clay.
This call appeared on the live show and he confessed to his supposed crimes, but at the time the crew thought it was a prank. prank. The call begins with the caller claiming to have taken the lives of 12 prostitutes. Howard is known for not shying away from controversy, so he decided to continue the conversation. Clay, as he called himself, claimed that the first crime happened when he was only 16 years old, and he gained a sense of power from the horrific ordeal. Stern then asked him for more information and asked Clay if he knew what was going to happen. The caller admitted he had planned it all. He claimed he sent out tips to confuse people, presumably the police, but they went unnoticed. Later, Howard Stern asked the criminal if he would eventually take his own life after all his crimes. Clay simply replied that he wouldn't because he would miss the next Batman movie. During the ordeal, the host tried to get information from the caller in order to get something that he could identify him with. The next day, the FBI reportedly turned to the radio show for a transcript of the conversation. They said to have wanted the phone call as evidence to determine if it was a case. However, nothing more came from the investigation to indicate that it was enough to lead anywhere, and they believed it was nothing more than a prank. Throughout the 90s, at least 24 prostitutes had their lives taken in the city. At the time, the press called the horrific crimes the Storyville Slayer, though a lot of people believe the caller may have been convicted criminal Russell Elwood. He was the first suspect on the police radar after he was found engaging in a lewd act near where two bodies were found. It was the same location at the last known location of Dolores Mack and Cheryl Lewis. Clay also told Stern he was white and told the host that the suspect in his own crimes was originally a black police officer, which matches the Elwood case. The original suspect in the Storyville Slayer was Victor Grant, a black New Orleans police officer. He was first mentioned as a suspect in the cases of Sharon Robinson and Karen Evester. However, he was never formally charged and was not linked to the subsequent investigation. Elwood was later sentenced to life in prison without parole in 1999. However, it was never confirmed that Elwood was behind the calls. He was arrested 5 months after the call and placed in prison in 2014. The true identity of the caller was never released.
So what happened? How many?
12.
And you're wondering why you do it?
I have a pretty good idea.
Did your mom beat you?
Was your mama?
No, I think I just do it for the sense of the power.
Do you have sex with them first?
Yes, and...
And then what?
Once. How much did
Oh.
Well, a few times, actually most times with a hammer.
And where do you do this primarily?
I've done it twice in a parking garage, and then the rest of the times on the side of the road.
Dude, you gotta have a lot of anger in you.
Yes.
Dude, you're a serial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how old were you when your first woman?
16.
And when you killed your first one, did you go in there knowing you were going to kill her, or it just sort of happened?
I knew I really had it planned out. You know, I wanted to do the whole sending clues.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Are you
To
in?
baffle people, but it turned out no one noticed for a long time.
And then what'd you do with the body? You dumped that somewhere?
Yeah, actually, I think she's probably one of the ones that they found.
Yeah. You're a white guy?
Yeah, Howard, that's pretty funny because the only suspect they had when they started finding the bodies was a black police officer.
Oh.
Turns out one of them was associated with them.
Okay. Now, how far apart are you? Like, do you and then like you feel satisfied for a while?
I don't even understand why I do it, Howard. I don't know if I ever get any satisfaction.
Two people in the same night?
Yeah, but I went to Mississippi for the second one.
So there's no pattern to how many weeks or days between.
No.
You think there's some racial motivation here?
No, Howard, they were just, let's just say a Jimmy Swaggart town. That's pretty much the area around here where the all hang out.
I see.
And it's just whoever comes up to you. You don't pick a certain type.
I don't even approach them. I wait for them to approach me, Robin.
When was the last time you?
It's been a few months.
Right.
Actually, it's been going on a year.
No, but in all seriousness, I mean, do you think that you can control this? Do you think you can
I
stop?
think I have been.
Oh, you have been for the last couple of months?
A year. You have.
Oh, a year?
Yeah.
Almost.
So why do you think you stopped all of a sudden?
I really don't know, Howard. part of it had to do with my car broke down.
Yeah. So there's no way I'm going to talk you into giving yourself up or anything, right?
No.
I shouldn't even waste my time. I know I'm going to get calls after this, and people are going to go, Howard, how come you didn't catch him?
Has anybody ever been close to catching you?
No. No, actually, someone, once when it was in the newspaper, someone joked to me, I know it was you, but, well, they were joking.